I'm Clara Hale, 32 years old, a woman who believed she understood loyalty, partnership, and the quiet language of love. For years, I assumed family and relationships were built on trust, on the steady reassurance that the person beside you was walking the same path with the same heart. But all it took was one video, 40-something seconds of careless cruelty broadcast to thousands, to detonate the future I thought I was building. I didn't find out through a confession. I didn't overhear a tense argument. I learned the truth through a screen recording sent to me at 12:21 a.m. by someone who loved me more honestly than the man I planned to marry. The man who had been weaving himself into my world for 2 years. Leo wasn't interested in me at all. Not really. Not as a partner. Not as someone he respected. Not even as someone he cared for. To him I was an opportunity. Resource. A jackpot he couldn't believe he had managed to snag. But before the betrayal became public knowledge, before I found myself staring into a darkness I didn't yet understand, we had a beginning. A warm, disarming beginning that felt safe enough for me to let my guard down. We met in a tiny independent coffee shop I frequented during long debugging sessions. I was deep into a marathon of code that refused to behave. He, tall, glowing with that effortless charm certain people carry like natural perfume, approached me with a grin and a comment about my army of open browser tabs. Plotting to hack the planet, he teased. It was silly, but it cracked through my stress and made me laugh. For the next hour, conversation poured easily between us. I told him about my passion for designing intuitive digital tools. He told me about his dream of becoming an online lifestyle creator, someone who shared curated glimpses of travel, wellness, and aesthetics with a growing digital audience. Found him refreshing. He was younger, 26 then, full of energy and ambition, a bright contrast to my quiet, disciplined nature. When I left that cafe with his number saved in my phone, I felt a flicker of excitement, the kind I hadn't felt in years. For a long time everything seemed perfect. I was a senior software developer, living comfortably but far from extravagance. Leo worked part-time while building his online presence, posting outfit of the day reels, cooking videos, snippets from our weekend hikes. I didn't mind being behind the camera. I liked supporting him. I liked watching someone chase their dream with such intensity. Then my life changed. The app one had been developing for years. My passion project, my late-night obsession, my quiet proof that I could build something from nothing, was acquired by a major tech firm. The deal was beyond anything I had ever dared imagine. Overnight I became wealthy. Not internet trend wealthy. Wealthy enough to reshape my future. I left my job. I began focusing on philanthropic ideas and new ventures. And the first thing I wanted to do was create a life with Leo. That was the moment the first cracks started to show. We began house hunting. I imagined something warm and tucked away. A modern craftsman home with a garden, a place that felt lived in and private. Leo, however, had other ideas. He started sending me listings of glass-walled mansions and luxury estates designed for dramatic drone footage. Think of the content, Clara, he'd say, showing me images of marble foyers and rooftop pools. It's not just a house, it's a statement. It tells people we've arrived. But the thing he didn't say, the thing I didn't want to acknowledge, was that I had arrived. He was simply collecting the benefits. Eventually, we compromised on a beautiful home that had enough shine for him and enough quiet space for me. Paid for everything. Leo promised to contribute in other ways. Brand building, maintaining the home, planning for our future together. I believed him because believing him felt easier than questioning him. The second red flag was subtler, but sharper. The day after we moved in, he told me my 3-year-old sedan didn't match our lifestyle. He gave me an entire slideshow. Yes, a literal slideshow, explaining why we needed luxury European cars. He had already picked the models, already imagined the thumbnails. It's about synergy, he insisted. When people see us, they should see success. Gave in. Again. Before long, 2 gleaming vehicles filled our garage. I signed, he celebrated. And I silenced the uneasy knot forming slowly in my stomach. But the third red flag. That one I can't forgive myself for ignoring. Our wedding. I wanted a small ceremony. Our closest people, an intimate vow shared quietly and sincerely. Leo wanted a production. Spectacle. The kind of wedding that would end up featured on influencer channels and trending pages. 500 guests. Media coverage. Celebrity planner. He wanted a show. I wanted a marriage. Every conversation became a negotiation. Every negotiation became a battle. My desire for something meaningful was repeatedly drowned out by his obsession with something marketable. My best friend Sarah, a financial advisor who had helped me navigate my unexpected wealth, saw the truth long before I did. "Clara, he's not building a life with you," she warned me gently. "He's building a platform on you." But I brushed it off. I defended him. I told myself he was just expressive, enthusiastic, overwhelmed by new possibilities. I told myself love meant compromise. Looking back now, I think I knew. I think I knew deep down that something was wrong. But I wasn't ready to face it. Not until the night he told the world who he really was. Not until the night I stumbled upon a video that would unravel everything. What I didn't know then was that my entire world was about to collapse. Not quietly, not privately, but in front of thousands of strangers who would witness the truth before I did. The week leading up to the live stream, the week my life quietly unraveled behind thin walls, felt like a series of split-screen moments. On one side was me, drafting legal documents for a scholarship program that had become the most meaningful project of my career. On the other side was Leo, obsessing over lighting angles, champagne labels, and the perfect authentic background for his next online appearance. We were living parallel lives under the same roof, orbiting each other without ever touching. I remember Monday vividly because it was the first day I realized how little of our home felt like mine anymore. Leo had gradually transformed the spaces I designed for comfort into sets for content creation. The sunroom became his casual lifestyle backdrop. My office, the one with custom shelving and acoustic panels I installed myself, had turned into his full-time studio, a place he rarely let me enter without adjusting something behind me. That afternoon, I walked past the doorway of what used to be my workspace. Leo was on a video call with a lighting designer, arguing about amber-toned uplights versus cool white ones for a potential wedding venue. "It all has to match the brand, man," he insisted, pacing with one hand dramatically in the air. "This wedding can't just look good in person. It needs to photograph iconic." The words stung a little more than I wanted to admit. He hadn't consulted me about these calls. He didn't ask what I envisioned for our wedding anymore. He was building an event, not a marriage. Meanwhile, I was building something very different. The scholarship program had been a dream I carried quietly long before money entered the equation. Once the acquisition went through, I knew exactly what I wanted to create: a foundation offering tuition assistance and mentorship to young women in underrepresented communities who wanted careers in tech. Women who reminded me of my younger self. Ambitious, overlooked, brilliant, needing only a doorway to walk through. The more I invested into the foundation, the more grounded I felt. The more Leo invested in his digital persona, the less I recognized him. Still, I kept trying. I kept convincing myself that differences weren't deal breakers, that love meant stretching to meet each other halfway. But by Tuesday, the stretching began to feel like tearing. He burst into the kitchen while I was preparing lunch, waving his phone excitedly. "Baby, a brand wants to send us matching satin robes for the wedding morning content shoot." And blinked. Wedding morning content shoot. He grinned like a child. "Yes, imagine the shots. You sitting at the vanity, makeup getting done, me adjusting my cufflinks. Soft lighting, our initials embroidered. It'll go viral." I laughed nervously, trying to disguise the discomfort bubbling inside me. "Leo, a wedding morning isn't supposed to be a commercial." He waved his hand. "Everything is content if it's captured right." I didn't respond. I wasn't sure I could without breaking something fragile. By Thursday, the tension between our worlds had become a weight on my chest. Leo was pacing around the kitchen announcing his weekend live stream. "It's gonna be a guys' night AMA. Raw, real, unfiltered. My audience eats that up." I stirred vegetables on the stove and nodded. "Do you need help setting up?" "Yes. Lighting, angles, ambience. You can make anything look good." It was meant to be a compliment. Felt like hiring a contractor. Still, I set up the shot with him. I positioned the cameras. I helped adjust the ring lights. I checked sound quality. I placed the whiskey bottle where the label was visible enough for the sponsoring brand to notice. I kept thinking, this is what support looks like, right? This is what a good partner does. At one point while adjusting the camera, I caught my reflection in the monitor. I looked tired. Not physically, but in that deep, soul-heavy way that comes from trying to hold something together without any help from the other side. Around 9 p.m., I kissed Leo on the cheek and told him I'd be in my office on a conference call. He flashed me a distracted smile, already practicing his intro. I went to my office, the part of the house he hadn't yet turned into a set. The call with the foundation lawyers began at 9:30 and stretched late into the night. We fine-tuned the selection criteria, finalized the legal structure, set the timeline for our first cohort of scholarship recipients. Every clause, every detail, every line of language made the vision clearer. I was building something real, something with purpose, something that didn't need an audience to matter. From down the hall, I occasionally heard laughter, raised voices, the kind of rowdy excitement that comes from a mix of alcohol and attention. I smiled, assuming Leo's stream was going well. I imagined his joy. I imagined the pride on his face. I had no idea I was imagining a ghost. Near midnight, the house grew quiet. I finished editing the final draft, hit send, and leaned back in my chair with a kind of satisfaction that only comes after birthing an idea into reality. The Clara Hale Foundation for Women in Technology was officially real. I stood, stretched, and walked through the dim hallway. The house was painted in soft golden lamplight. Peaceful. I checked Leo's studio lights off. I assumed he'd gone to bed. But his side of the bed was untouched. I was reaching for my phone to text him when the screen lit up with Sarah's name. Text. Link. 5 words that made my heartbeat stumble. You need to see this. I'm so sorry. My stomach clenched. Tap the link. And the moment the video began playing, Leo's flushed, laughing face leaning toward the camera as he described me as his winning ticket, I felt the floor disappear beneath me. Everything after that moment became a blur of cold dread and disbelief. His tone wasn't playful. His words weren't careless. They were deliberate, confident, dripping with contempt I had never heard from him before. Not privately, not publicly, not even in arguments. Hearing someone tell the truth about you, when the truth wasn't meant for you, cuts in a way nothing else can. I watched it once, then again, then a third time, analyzing every micro-expression of his drunken smirk, every arrogant tilt of his head, every careless mention of the money I had worked years to earn. He wasn't marrying me, he was harvesting me, and he was proud of it. But the most devastating moment wasn't watching the video. It was what came next, when the man who betrayed me finally walked through the front door, with no idea that the performance was over. Shock is a strange thing. Doesn't hit all at once. It settles in layers. First disbelief, then confusion, then the cold, creeping realization that something irreversible has happened. When Sarah's text came through and the video began to play, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. I just sat there on the edge of my bed with my phone glowing in my hand, the words washing over me like acid. Let me tell you guys the real deal. The way he said it, leaning in, smirking, savoring each word, felt like a blade slipping between my ribs. The Leo the first knew was charming, warm, tender. But the Leo on the screen wasn't that man. He was someone who wore cruelty comfortably, someone who reveled in performing his own arrogance. He spoke about me like I was a tool, a means to an end, financial strategy. She's my ticket. He even winked. The betrayal wasn't quiet or accidental. It was confident, proud, almost celebratory. I didn't know which hurt more, the words or the ease with which they left his mouth. I watched the clip again, and again. My mind, built for logic and analysis, kept trying to make sense of it. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I misunderstood. But each replay stripped away another layer of denial. There was no misunderstanding. There was no joke. There was no version of this that didn't reveal the truth. The man I thought I loved did not exist. By the time Sarah called, I couldn't speak. I answered the phone, but only a strangled sound came out. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She heard everything in my silence. I'm on my way, she said simply. I could barely walk, but I managed to go downstairs, unlock the front door, and collapse onto the sofa. A few minutes later, Sarah arrived. Her presence soft but strong enough to anchor me. She sat beside me and I fell apart in her arms. I cried harder than I think I ever have in my life. Not just for the relationship, but for all the moments I had defended him, all the warnings I had ignored, all the parts of myself I had bent to make his dreams feel supported. What do? I whispered into her shoulder. She brushed my hair back. You breathe, she said. Then you get angry. Then we make a plan. Her voice wasn't vengeful. It was steady, like she was reminding me who I was. You built your life with your own hands, Clara. You don't let someone like him tear it down. Slowly, the earthquake inside me calmed just enough for clarity to seep through. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't trapped. I had options. I had resources. And I had the right to protect myself, emotionally and financially. That realization became a fuse. By the time the sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway echoed through the quiet house, nearly 2 hours later, I wasn't sobbing anymore. The tears had dried into something sharper. Resolve. The front door opened with its usual soft creak. Leo stumbled in, humming tunelessly, smelling of whiskey and arrogance. He didn't see us at first. He was too busy kicking his shoes off, muttering, "God, what a night. We crushed it." The irony was almost laughable. When he finally turned and saw me sitting on the sofa, Sarah beside me, arms crossed, his smile collapsed into confusion. "Hey, you're up," he said, blinking. "Why's Sarah here? Did something happen?" My voice came out strangely calm. "Sit down, Leo." He frowned, suddenly suspicious. Okay." He sat. Sarah didn't move. Neither did I. I picked up my phone from the coffee table, opened the video and pressed play. His own voice filled the room. "Power couple," he quoted the viewer's comment, then laughed, a laugh I would never hear the same way again. As he listened, Leo's expression shifted from confusion to recognition to horror. The color drained from his face. "Clara, wait, let me explain," he said, reaching out. I didn't let him touch me. "Listen," I said. "But, listen." He fell silent as the video continued. "I won the lottery, plain and simple." His shoulders curled inward. He looked small, cornered, guilty. No deep love. No real respect. He shut his eyes like the words physically hurt him. "She's my ticket." When the video ended, the silence felt thick enough to choke on. Leo swallowed hard. "Clara, it was a joke. I was drunk. That's not how I feel. You know that." "No," I said, voice steady. "I know exactly how you feel. Because this," I lifted the phone slightly, "this is what you say when you think I'll never hear it. When you think the truth won't reach me." He shook his head rapidly. No, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just for engagement. Shock value. I didn't mean any of it." I exhaled slowly. The proposal, car, the house, the wedding. All of it was about the image, wasn't it? About what you looked like standing next to me. "That's not fair." "Fair," I repeated, a bitter laugh slipping out. "You told thousands of strangers that you were marrying me for money. You took credit for a life you didn't build. You turned our relationship into content." His eyes filled with panic. "Baby, I can fix this. I'll apologize on stream. I'll delete everything. Please, we can move past this. We have to." "No, Leo," I said. His breath hitched. He stood, slowly, deliberately. I slipped off the engagement ring, a ring he gave me with money he didn't earn, and placed it on the table between us. He stared at it like it was burning. "The wedding is off," I said. "Everything is off." He shot to his feet. "Clara, don't do this. You're making a huge mistake. You're ruining my..." Cut him off. "Your life. Your brand. Leo, you ruined it the moment you opened your mouth on that live stream." He looked around frantically, as if the right lie might still save him. "Please," he begged. "I love you." "No," I said quietly. "You love what I have." He froze. "Get your things," I added. "Leave tonight." His voice cracked. You can't kick me out of our house." "Our house," I repeated. "Leo, this was never yours." His chin trembled. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That," I said, "is no longer my problem." He stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time. Not the ticket, not the jackpot, not the leverage. Just the woman he underestimated. He packed a bag and left before sunrise. And I didn't cry when the door shut behind him. Not this time. But ending the engagement was only the beginning. What came next? Public backlash, financial disentangling, and a viral storm that swallowed us both would push me into a fire I never expected. The first 24 hours after Leo walked out of the house felt like drifting through the aftermath of an explosion. Smoke still in the air, debris everywhere, but the worst of the blast had already passed. I wasn't numb, exactly. I was clear. Clear in a way I hadn't been in months. It was as though someone had finally wiped the fingerprints of his influence off the glass of my life, and I was seeing everything sharply again. While Sarah stayed with me through the night, I barely slept. Not from sorrow, those tears had already burned through me, but from a quiet, structured rage that sharpened my focus. By sunrise I was ready. At 8 a.m. on the dot, with a cup of coffee warming my hands, I made my first call. 1. The wedding planner. Good morning, Clara. Leo told me he wanted the florals too. The wedding is cancelled, I said plainly. Oh, I see. May I ask why? No, I answered. Please notify all vendors and send me a list of the non-refundable expenses. I'll settle them. I could almost hear her scrambling to adjust her tone. It didn't matter. I wasn't here to explain myself to someone who had spent the past 6 months coordinating with Leo like I was a distant investor. Ending the wedding wasn't painful. It was clean. To my parents. Telling my mother was harder. Clara. Sweetheart. What's wrong? She asked the moment she heard my voice. Kept it simple. Mom. Leo and I aren't getting married. I found out he wasn't being honest with me about his intentions. There was no judgment in her silence. Only concern. We're coming over, she said. No arguments. And they did. My parents showed up like anchors, bringing groceries, warmth, and the kind of quiet reassurance only unconditional love can provide. 3. His parents. Calling Leo's mother was an entirely different experience. No, she snapped when I told her the wedding was off. You must be mistaken. Leo adores you. Your son went on a live stream and told thousands of viewers he was marrying me for my money, I replied. That's ridiculous, she said sharply. What did you do to make him say something like that? I hung up before she finished the accusation. There was nothing left to discuss with someone who viewed their son as an eternal victim. Detangling the financial web. The real work began once the calls were done. With Sarah beside me, I opened my bank accounts. What I saw wasn't shocking, but it was infuriating. Multiple clothing hauls. High-end skincare subscriptions. $900 for brand consultation photography props. A $1,200 espresso machine he swore was necessary for the vibe. Travel expenses I hadn't approved. And multiple online purchases for equipment upgrades. It wasn't theft. It was entitlement disguised as contribution. Time to shut the doors, Sarah said. So I did one by one. I revoked his access to the joint credit card. I cancelled the luxury subscriptions he used for content. I removed him from the household account. Changed passwords on every financial platform. I contacted my lawyer to remove his name from anything he had been added to. By mid-afternoon I was drained but satisfied. My life looks cleaner without him in it, I said quietly. Sarah smiled. That's because it is. Leo's messages begin. First came the apologies. Clara, please talk to me. We can fix this. I was drunk. I didn't mean anything I said. You're the best thing in my life. Please don't throw us away. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. You can't really cancel a wedding over one joke. You're being dramatic. You're overreacting. This isn't fair. Then came the desperation. My mom is devastated. She said you're being selfish. Everyone thinks you're being cold. You're ruining both our reputations. I stared at the messages for a long time. Not because they tempted me but because they proved something important. Leo wasn't sorry. Leo was scared. There's a difference. The internet finds the clip. By early evening, the video of Leo's confession had left the small corner of his live stream and begun spreading across platforms at alarming speed. It started with a few comments on a drama page. Then someone clipped the most brutal 30 seconds and posted it with the caption. This influencer just admitted he's marrying his girlfriend for her money. Within hours it was everywhere. His follower count plummeted. His sponsorships vanished. His comment sections turned into wildfire. People weren't mocking me. They were eviscerating him. Get a job, dude. He really said the quiet part out loud. Imagine fumbling a millionaire fiancé that hard. Greediest man of 2025 award goes to. He had always wanted virality. He just never pictured it like this. The story escalated once someone found our wedding website. Strangers left encouraging messages in the guest book. Good for you, Clara. You dodged a bullet and a parasite. Queen energy. He fumbled generational wealth and love. I didn't feel triumph. Felt detached. Like I was watching a documentary about someone else's life. Sarah scrolled through the online commentary and shook her head. He wanted fame. He just didn't realize the universe was accepting return to sender. What hurt the most? Strangely, the online chaos wasn't the part that broke me. It was something quieter. Later that night, when the house was calm again, I went to the kitchen to get water. I passed the spot where Leo used to set up his laptop for editing. His favorite mug still sat on the counter. A stupid ceramic mug with a chipped handle. That was when the sadness hit. Not because I missed him, but because I missed the version of myself who believed he was good. The woman who would have done anything to protect him. The woman who thought love meant sacrificing pieces of herself. She was gone. And maybe that was the real loss. But she needed to go, so someone stronger could take her place. A month later, the storm eventually died down. I donated everything he left behind. I returned to driving the modest car I actually liked. I continued building my scholarship program. And slowly, I reclaimed my home, replacing his equipment with houseplants, replacing his noise with quiet, replacing his chaos with peace. Healing didn't happen in a dramatic moment. It happened in small ones. Morning coffee that tasted better. Evenings without anxiety. Phone notifications that didn't tighten my stomach. Silence that felt comforting instead of suffocating. One crisp evening, Sarah visited with Thai takeout. We sat on the patio overlooking the backyard, the same yard Leo once called too plain for content. I realized I loved it exactly as it was. "I'm proud of you," Sarah said softly. "I'm proud of me too," I replied. And for the first time I truly meant it. But just when the dust began to settle, and I thought I had left everything behind, something unexpected happened that forced me to confront the last piece of this story. A month passed. Chaos faded. The story burned bright online for a week and then, like all things on the internet, softened into background noise as the world moved on to its next spectacle. Leo vanished from every platform, either by choice or because hiding was easier than facing the ruins of the life he had built on illusions. Meanwhile, my life slowly reassembled itself. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. The silence in the house no longer felt hollow. It felt like breathing fresh air after being underwater for too long. My parents had visited often early on, bringing homemade food, comfortable conversation, and the quiet kind of love that doesn't demand explanations. Sarah checked in almost every day, not out of pity but out of loyalty. She knew I wasn't fragile. She simply made sure I wasn't alone in the moments when the leftover ache crept in. The wedding vendors refunded what they could. I paid what couldn't be recovered. I didn't begrudge it. Those payments felt like tuition. Tuition for the most brutal course in my life. Love and Deception 101. The last loose ends were financial. With my lawyer's help, I had cleaned the accounts, revoked access, updated documents, and returned the glossy coupe Leo had insisted on. I kept the car title in my name but sent the keys to his parents with a note. "He can keep it. Consider it closure." It wasn't generosity. It was detachment. I wanted no reminders in my driveway of the man who treated my heart like a business investment. I sold my own flashy SUV next. Not because I needed the money but because I needed the symbolism. I bought a simple sedan almost identical to the one I drove before Leo ever entered my life. Driving it felt like coming home to myself. The scholarship program. 2 weeks after Leo left, my foundation officially awarded its first 3 scholarships. I met the recipients on a video call. 3 brilliant young women overflowing with ideas and ambition. Their faces lit up when they talked about their goals, their innovations, their passion projects. Listening to them, I felt something click into place. This was what my success was meant for. Not luxury, not image, not someone else's digital empire. Impact, legacy, real change. Their excitement washed away the last remnants of guilt I'd been carrying. Guilt for failing a relationship that had never actually been real. Quiet realization. One crisp evening, Sarah brought wine and Thai food. We ate on the back patio, wrapped in blankets as the autumn air swirled around us. The sky looked like it had been painted with apricot and lavender. "How are you really?" Sarah asked, sipping her drink. "For the first time," I said slowly, "I feel steady. Not happy all the time. Not healed completely. But steady." "What do you miss?" she asked gently. I considered it carefully. "Not him," I admitted. "I miss who I thought he was. I miss believing the story I created in my head. I miss thinking I had found someone who loved me without complication." Sarah nodded. That wasn't love, Clara. That was projection. We all do it. We fall in love with the version of someone we build in our minds. I know, I said. And it wasn't stupid, I was hopeful. I led with trust. And he weaponized it. The word weaponized stung because it was true. But acknowledging the truth didn't hurt. Liberated me. Unexpected visitor. The next morning I woke early and decided to sort through the last untouched corner of the house. A storage closet near the garage. It had become a dumping ground. A place where Leo shoved equipment boxes, tripods and used ring lights, and endless bags from overpriced brand-aligned stores. Clearing it felt like an exorcism. I hauled out cables, props, stacks of unused planners meant for aesthetic flat-lay shots. By noon I had formed 2 piles, trash and donate. I was about to drag the boxes outside when I heard a knock on the door. Soft, hesitant one. When I opened it I froze. Leo stood on the porch. He looked nothing like the man who walked out of my house weeks ago. His hair was unstyled, his face unshaven, his eyes puffy and tired. His clothes hung awkwardly on him, as if he had lost weight he couldn't afford to lose. He held a small duffel bag in his hand. "Clara," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I felt something shift inside me, but not the way he hoped. Not sadness, not nostalgia, not longing, just distance. "What do you need?" I asked, my voice even. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. For everything. Truly. I know you don't owe me anything, but I needed to say it. I ruined the best thing that ever happened to me. I ruined us. My chest tightened. Not with emotion, but with the weight of a truth I had finally learned to carry without breaking. "There was no us, Leo," I said. "There was me. And there was you taking advantage of me." He swallowed hard. "I know. And I hate myself for it." I didn't speak. Sometimes silence is the clearest answer. He lifted the duffel bag slightly as if to show it to me. "I came to return what's left of my things. I don't want anything you gave me." For a moment, I saw the boy he must have once been. The one life had hardened or softened, or twisted into someone who could look at love and see currency. But compassion is not obligation. I accepted the bag quietly and stepped back. "Thank you for returning these," I said. "But Leo, there's nothing left for you here." His mouth trembled. Can I at least apologize properly?" "You already did," I said gently. "And I accept it. But that doesn't reopen doors. Some endings stay endings." A tear escaped him, but he didn't argue. For the first time since we met, Leo didn't try to negotiate, persuade, charm, or manipulate. He simply nodded. "I hope," he whispered, "you find someone who deserves you." "I already did," I replied softly. "Me." And I closed the door. It didn't slam. It didn't stick. Didn't echo. It simply closed, as easily and softly as a story ending on the sentence it was always meant to end with. But healing isn't just about closing doors. It's about opening new ones. And the next door I stepped through revealed something I never expected. Something that changed the entire meaning of what sometimes closure comes quietly. Through a soft conversation, a door gently shut, a truth finally accepted. Other times, closure arrives disguised as something new. Not a replacement, not a rebound, but a reminder that endings are not the same thing as emptiness. After Leo returned his belongings and walked away without asking for another chance, I expected a wave of sadness to hit me, or anger, or nostalgia, but none of those came. Instead, what washed over me was lightness. For the first time in months, the house felt like it belonged to me again. The air felt breathable. The walls no longer echoed with performances or pretense. There was no ring light waiting to be switched on. No background music looped endlessly for ambience. No forced laughter bouncing from room to room. Just peace. And in that peace, for the first time since everything fell apart, I began noticing the small things. The way the morning sunlight pooled on the kitchen counter. The soft tap of my laptop keys when I was deep in flow. The rhythmic hum of the dishwasher. The quiet comfort of cooking for myself without needing to turn it into a photo op. I was rediscovering the life I had built before Leo ever entered it, and realizing it was far more beautiful than the flashy life he wanted to stage. Chance invitation. About 2 weeks after Leo's visit, I received an email from a university I had partnered with for the scholarship program. They were hosting a small networking event for scholarship donors, mentors, and recipients, a private gathering meant to foster community among the people who would make the program thrive. Normally, I would have politely declined. I'm not the kind of person who enjoys talking about myself in front of strangers. But something nudged me to say yes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was bravery. Maybe it was the first spark of wanting to step beyond the shadow of what happened. So I went. The event was held in a beautiful indoor garden space filled with soft lighting, warm air, and the earthy scent of fresh soil. It was nothing like the sterile hotel conference halls Leo always insisted were perfect for content. As soon as I stepped inside, a student recognized me. Real love, doesn't shrink you. It expands you. And for the first time in a long time I felt myself expanding again. Because what came next wasn't just healing. It was evolution. The next chapter of my life wasn't about recovering from what I lost. It was about stepping fully into who I was always meant to become. "You're Clara Hale," she said, eyes wide. "Your story inspired me." I nearly choked. "My story. Not the one online," she clarified gently. "The one about your career. Your app. The foundation." Her voice held admiration, not gossip. "I want to build something like you did," she continued. "Not a company, something that actually matters." Her words landed in a part of me that had been bruised but not broken. We talked for 10 minutes. Then another student approached. Then a professor. Then one of the administrators. And suddenly, I wasn't Clara the heartbroken ex-fiancée or Clara the viral story. I was Clara the innovator. Clara the founder. Clara the builder. It felt like remembering who I was before someone else's narrative tried to overwrite my own. An unexpected meeting. Near the end of the evening, as I was getting ready to leave, one of the program coordinators tapped my shoulder. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," she said. "He's a visiting lecturer, computer science, behavioral systems design. He's been following your foundation's work." She led me toward a small group standing near a row of ferns. A tall man with warm brown eyes and dark curls turned as we approached. "Clara," the coordinator said, "this is Dr. Adrian Wells." He extended a hand. "I've heard a lot about your work. It's impressive." His voice was calm, grounded. Not performative. Not eager to charm. Just real. We shook hands, and I expected the usual formal conversation. Instead, Adrian asked a question that caught me off guard. "What was the moment you realized your app idea could actually become something?" No one had asked me that in years. Leo always asked how much revenue it brought in. Investors asked how scalable it was. But no one had asked about the moment. I found myself smiling. When I built a prototype that solved a problem I'd been dealing with for months, I realized I wasn't the only one who needed it. His eyes lit up. That's always the best moment. When necessity turns into innovation. We talked for nearly an hour. About tech. About design philosophy. About burnout in the industry. About using wealth responsibly. About mentorship. About impact. Never once did he ask about Leo. Never once did he hint at the viral scandal. Not even subtly. He didn't see me as a story. He saw me as a person. And that, strangely, felt more intimate than anything Leo had ever done. When the event ended, Adrian handed me his card. "No pressure," he said with an easy smile. "But if you ever want to collaborate on something or just talk shop, I'd love to." I took the card, feeling something soft bloom in my chest. Not romance. Not yet. Something gentler. Possibility. A letter from the past. That night when I came home, I noticed an envelope slipped under my door. My stomach tightened. I recognized Leo's handwriting instantly. I considered throwing it away without reading it. But something told me to open it. Not to reconnect, not to forgive, but to finally finish the last undone thread of the story. Inside was a single page. "Clara, I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but please hear me when I say this. I'm sorry. Not for the consequences. Not for the humiliation. But for hurting someone who did nothing but believe in me. You didn't deserve any of what I did. You deserved someone who loved you purely. I wasn't that person. I don't know if I ever was. I think I only knew how to love what you brought into my life, not who you were. You don't owe me forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. And I will spend a long time trying to become someone who would never repeat the mistakes I made with you. Thank you for everything you gave me, even the things I didn't appreciate when I had them. Leo." I folded the letter, not with anger, but with finality. This was not a door opening. This was a chapter sealing shut. A new beginning. The next morning I didn't think about Leo. Not for even a moment. I thought about the students, the foundation, the event, Adrian's questions. The way my chest felt a little lighter. A little more open. I had spent so long believing that love required sacrifice. That relationships demanded bending until pieces of myself broke off. But now I realized something else entirely. Sometimes closure comes quietly. Through a soft conversation, a door gently shut, a truth finally accepted. Other times, closure arrives disguised as something new. Not a replacement, not a rebound, but a reminder that endings are not the same thing as emptiness. After Leo returned his belongings and walked away without asking for another chance, I expected a wave of sadness to hit me, or anger, or nostalgia, but none of those came. Instead, what washed over me was lightness. For the first time in months, the house felt like it belonged to me again. The air felt breathable. The walls no longer echoed with performances or pretense. There was no ring light waiting to be switched on. No background music looped endlessly for ambience. No forced laughter bouncing from room to room. Just peace. And in that peace, for the first time since everything fell apart, I began noticing the small things. The way the morning sunlight pooled on the kitchen counter. The soft tap of my laptop keys when I was deep in flow. The rhythmic hum of the dishwasher. The quiet comfort of cooking for myself without needing to turn it into a photo op. I was rediscovering the life I had built before Leo ever entered it, and realizing it was far more beautiful than the flashy life he wanted to stage. Chance invitation. About 2 weeks after Leo's visit, I received an email from a university I had partnered with for the scholarship program. They were hosting a small networking event for scholarship donors, mentors, and recipients. A private gathering meant to foster community among the people who would make the program thrive. Normally, I would have politely declined. I'm not the kind of person who enjoys talking about myself in front of strangers. But something nudged me to say yes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was bravery. Maybe it was the first spark of wanting to step beyond the shadow of what happened. So I went. The event was held in a beautiful indoor garden space filled with soft lighting, warm air, and the earthy scent of fresh soil. It was nothing like the sterile hotel conference halls Leo always insisted were perfect for content. As soon as I stepped inside, a student recognized me. "You're Clara Hale," she said, eyes wide. "Your story inspired me." I nearly choked. "My story. Not the one online," she clarified gently. "The one about your career. Your app. The foundation." Her voice held admiration, not gossip. "I want to build something like you did," she continued. "Not a company, something that actually matters." Her words landed in a part of me that had been bruised but not broken. We talked for 10 minutes. Then another student approached. Then a professor. Then one of the administrators. And suddenly, I wasn't Clara the heartbroken ex-fiancée or Clara the viral story. I was Clara the innovator. Clara the founder. Clara the builder. It felt like remembering who I was before someone else's narrative tried to overwrite my own. An unexpected meeting. Near the end of the evening, as I was getting ready to leave, one of the program coordinators tapped my shoulder. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," she said. "He's a visiting lecturer, computer science, behavioral systems design. He's been following your foundation's work." She led me toward a small group standing near a row of ferns. A tall man with warm brown eyes and dark curls turned as we approached. "Clara," the coordinator said, "this is Dr. Adrian Wells." He extended a hand. "I've heard a lot about your work. It's impressive." His voice was calm, grounded. Not performative. Not eager to charm. Just real. We shook hands, and I expected the usual formal conversation. Instead, Adrian asked a question that caught me off guard. "What was the moment you realized your app idea could actually become something?" No one had asked me that in years. Leo always asked how much revenue it brought in. Investors asked how scalable it was. But no one had asked about the moment. I found myself smiling. When I built a prototype that solved a problem I'd been dealing with for months, I realized I wasn't the only one who needed it. His eyes lit up. That's always the best moment. When necessity turns into innovation. We talked for nearly an hour. About tech. About design philosophy. About burnout in the industry. About using wealth responsibly. About mentorship. About impact. Never once did he ask about Leo. Never once did he hint at the viral scandal. Not even subtly. He didn't see me as a story. He saw me as a person. And that, strangely, felt more intimate than anything Leo had ever done. When the event ended, Adrian handed me his card. "No pressure," he said with an easy smile. "But if you ever want to collaborate on something or just talk shop, I'd love to." I took the card, feeling something soft bloom in my chest. Not romance. Not yet. Something gentler. Possibility. A letter from the past. That night when I came home, I noticed an envelope slipped under my door. My stomach tightened. I recognized Leo's handwriting instantly. I considered throwing it away without reading it. But something told me to open it. Not to reconnect, not to forgive, but to finally finish the last undone thread of the story. Inside was a single page. "Clara, I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but please hear me when I say this. I'm sorry. Not for the consequences. Not for the humiliation. But for hurting someone who did nothing but believe in me. You didn't deserve any of what I did. You deserved someone who loved you purely. I wasn't that person. I don't know if I ever was. I think I only knew how to love what you brought into my life, not who you were. You don't owe me forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. All of it. And I will spend a long time trying to become someone who would never repeat the mistakes I made with you. Thank you for everything you gave me, even the things I didn't appreciate when I had them. Leo." I folded the letter, not with anger, but with finality. This was not a door opening. This was a chapter sealing shut. A new beginning. The next morning I didn't think about Leo. Not for even a moment. I thought about the students, the foundation, the event, Adrian's questions. The way my chest felt a little lighter. A little more open. I had spent so long believing that love required sacrifice. That relationships demanded bending until pieces of myself broke off. But now I realized something else entirely. Real love, doesn't shrink you. It expands you. And for the first time in a long time I felt myself expanding again. Because what came next wasn't just healing. It was evolution. The next chapter of my life wasn't about recovering from what I lost. It was about stepping fully into who I was always meant to become.